My daughter, they say you're the only one who can save her. What's her name? Adaize. I know, I've been waiting for you to come.
There is a village in the eastern part of this country. I will not tell you its name, because the people there would not want me to. They are proud people, or at least, they used to be. The village sits at the bottom of a long hill, where the red earth meets the green bush. In the dry season, the dust rises so thick that you cannot see the next compound. In the rainy season, the roads turn to mud, and nobody goes anywhere, nobody comes, nobody leaves. That was the way of it, for a very long time. And in that village, there lived a boy. His name was Emmanuel, but nobody called him that. Not really. The children called him things. Names that stick to a person, like burrs on a goat's wool. Names you hear every single day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you close your eyes, and even then, they follow you into your dreams. Emmanuel's mother sold groundnuts by the roadside. That is all she did. Every morning, before the sun came up properly, she would sit on a piece of sackcloth with a tin bowl in front of her, and she would wait. Sometimes people bought, sometimes they did not. On bad days, she came home with nothing, and Emmanuel would go to bed with his stomach making sounds that he tried very hard to hide. His father had left, not died, left. One morning he walked out of the compound carrying a small bag, and he never came back. Some people said he went to the city. Some people said he went to another country. Emmanuel's mother never talked about it. She just kept selling groundnuts. So there was Emmanuel, a thin boy, too thin, with ribs that showed through his shirt like the rungs of a broken ladder. He wore the same two shirts, rotated, washed, dried, worn again. His shoes, well, one of them had a hole in the front, and he would press his toes down into the ground so nobody would see. But here is the thing about Emmanuel that nobody noticed. Not the children who mocked him, not the teachers who looked through him, not even his own mother, most days, because she was too tired to look closely at anything. Emmanuel was smart. Not the kind of smart that shows up in exams, although it did. It was a different kind. The kind where he would sit under the mango tree at the back of the school compound and read the same torn page of a science book over and over again, turning the words over in his mind like stones in a river, smoothing them, understanding them, making them his. He wanted to be a doctor. He did not say this to anyone. You do not say things like that in a village like that. You do not stand up in front of 30 children who are already laughing at you and say, I want to be a doctor. They would eat you alive. So he kept it inside, like a seed, like a small fire under ash. Now, let me tell you about the mocking, because it matters. It matters not because I want to make you sad, but because you need to understand what it felt like, so that later, when he comes back, you will understand what it cost him, and what it cost them. It started small, the way these things always do. A boy named Kofi, who was bigger than most of the other children, started calling him Groundnut Boy, because of his mother. Because of the groundnuts. And the other children, they laughed. Not because it was funny, but because Kofi laughed, and in a school like that, you follow the loudest voice. Then it became whole shoe, then no father, then just nothing. Emmanuel, he would walk to school every morning with his head down. Not because he was ashamed, but because if he looked up, he would have to see their faces. And their faces were not cruel. Exactly. That is the worst part. They were just empty, like they did not even know what they were doing. Like mocking a boy with no shoes was the same as noticing the wind had changed direction. It was nothing to them. But to him, it was everything. There was one day, I remember this clearly, because Emmanuel told me about it later. And even then, years after, his voice went quiet when he spoke of it. It was market day. His mother had managed to sell a little more than usual, and she had bought him a new notebook. Just a small one, the kind with the cardboard cover and the lined pages. Emmanuel held it against his chest as he walked home, because he did not want it to get dirty. And Kofi was there, with two of his friends. They did not take the notebook. That would have been too simple. Instead, Kofi walked up to Emmanuel, looked him in the eye, and said, "What are you going to write in that? A letter to your father? He cannot read anyway." And the other two laughed. And Emmanuel stood there, the notebook pressed against his chest. The sun was hot. The dust was in his throat. And he did not cry. He did not run. He just stood there, very still, and looked at Kofi with an expression that Kofi did not understand. Because it was not anger. It was something deeper. It was a boy deciding, right there, in that moment, that he would not let this place be the end of him. He went home. He put the notebook under his mattress. And that night, after his mother had fallen asleep on the floor, because the bed was too small for both of them, Emmanuel took out a stub of pencil and wrote one sentence on the first page. "I will become a doctor, and I will come back." He did not know how, he did not know when, but he wrote it down, and that made it real. The years passed. Emmanuel finished primary school. He did well. Too well, actually. The teacher, a man named Mr. Ajay, who was one of the few people in that village who saw Emmanuel as a person and not a punchline, Mr. Ajay went to the chief and said, "This boy must go to secondary school. You must find a way." The chief looked at Mr. Ajay like he had said something foolish. With what money? His mother sells groundnuts. But Mr. Ajay was stubborn. He went from compound to compound. He talked to the women's group. He talked to the church. He collected small amounts, coins and notes, crumpled and folded, and he brought it all to Emmanuel's mother. She held the money in her hands and she cried. Not because she was happy, because she was afraid. Because sending your child away to school means you are trusting that the world will be kinder to him than you have been able to be. And she was not sure the world would keep that promise. But Emmanuel went. He left the village on a Tuesday morning. His mother walked him to the edge of the hill, where the bus would come. She did not say much. She just adjusted his collar and said, "Eat when you can, and do not forget who you are." He nodded. He got on the bus, and he did not look back, because if he looked back, he would not have been able to leave. Secondary school was harder. The other boys came from families with money. They had shoes that did not have holes. They had lunch boxes with sandwiches. Emmanuel had a bag of maize and beans that his mother had packed, and he ate it alone, behind the library, where nobody could see. But he studied. Oh, how he studied. He studied like a man digging for water in the dry season, knowing that if he stops, he dies. He came top of his class, then top of the district. Then a scholarship came, and he went to the university to study medicine. Medicine. Can you imagine? That thin boy with the hole in his shoe, sitting in a lecture hall with 200 other students, learning about the human heart, the human brain, the bones and the blood and the breath, learning how to save a life. He was poor the entire time. The other students went out on weekends. They went to restaurants. They bought new clothes. Emmanuel worked at the university clinic after hours, cleaning, carrying, sweeping, anything for a little money. He slept 4 hours a night, some nights 3. There were moments, late at night, when he would sit on the concrete step outside his hostel room, and he would think about the village, about Kofi, about the notebook under the mattress, about his mother's hands, cracked and brown from years of selling groundnuts in the sun, and he would whisper to himself, "Not yet, not yet, but soon." 6 years. It took him 6 years. 6 years of no money, no rest, no comfort. 6 years of being the poorest person in every room he walked into. 6 years of people looking at him and seeing nothing, just like they used to. But he finished. Dr. Emmanuel. He stood in that graduation hall, in his gown, and he did not cheer with the others. He just sat very still, and he let the moment pass through him, like water through a stone. Because he knew that this was not the end, this was the beginning of the part that mattered. He got a job at a hospital in the city, a good hospital. People respected him. He was quiet, yes. He did not talk much, but when he spoke, people listened, because he had a way of looking at you, really looking at you, as if he could see the thing that was hurting you, even if you had not said a word. He sent money home. Every month. His mother did not need to sell groundnuts anymore. She sat in her compound and she rested, and sometimes she would tell the neighbors, "My son is a doctor, a real doctor," and they would nod, because what else do you say? But Emmanuel did not go back. Not yet. He told himself he was busy. He told himself he was building something, and that was true. But there was another reason, and it sat in his chest like a stone he could not swallow. He was not ready to face them, not because he was angry, but because he was afraid that if he went back, he would find that nothing had changed, that they would still look at him the same way, that the village would still be the village, and he would still be the boy with the hole in his shoe, no matter what title he carried. So he waited. And then one evening, his mother called him. Her voice was different, thin, tired in a way that was not just tired. "Emmanuel," she said, "something is happening in the village. People are sick. Many people. The children first, then the old ones. The clinic sent medicine, but it is not working. They are saying, they are saying it is something bad." He sat down. Right there, in his small apartment, with the phone in his hand, and he sat down on the floor. Because he knew, even before she said the words, he knew. He asked her to describe the symptoms: fever, coughing, the skin turning yellow, the children too weak to cry. He closed his eyes. And in that moment, every year of mockery, every groundnut boy, every whole shoe, every laugh that had followed him down the road to school, every night he had gone to bed hungry, every time he had pressed his toes into the ground to hide the hole in his shoe, all of it, every single piece of it, rose up inside him. And he made a decision. He packed a bag, not a big one, stethoscope, a few medicines, his old notebook, the one with the cardboard cover, the one he had carried all those years. He put it in the bag because he did not know why. Maybe because it reminded him of who he was before the world told him he was nothing. He drove for 7 hours. 7 hours on a road that got worse the closer he got. The tarmac became gravel. The gravel became dirt. The dirt became mud. And then, at the bottom of the long hill, he saw it. The village. It looked smaller than he remembered. Or maybe he was just bigger now. He parked the car. He stepped out. And the dust rose around him, just like it used to. People looked at him. Some of them recognized him. A woman selling something by the roadside stopped and stared. An old man sitting under a tree squinted. A child pointed and said something to another child, and they both looked. But nobody came forward. Nobody said his name. He walked to the clinic first. It was a small building, one room, with a nurse who looked like she had not slept in days. She looked at him, at his white coat, at the stethoscope around his neck, and she said, Are you the doctor they said was coming?" "I am the doctor," he said. She almost cried. He went to work. There were 43 people sick, children mostly, some so young they could not tell him where it hurt. He examined each one. He listened to their chests. He looked into their eyes. He held their small hands, and he spoke to them softly, the way you speak to someone who is afraid. And as he worked, something happened that he did not expect. The village began to come to him. Not all at once. Slowly. A woman would stand at the door of the clinic and watch. Then she would come in and sit down. Then she would ask a question. Then another person would come, and another. They did not know what to say to him. That was clear. They stood there with their hands folded, or hanging at their sides, and they looked at the floor, or at the wall, or anywhere but at his face, because they knew. They knew who he was. They knew what they had done. And now here he was, saving their children, and they had to stand in front of the boy they had called nothing and watch him do the thing that only a doctor could do. On the second day, Kofi came. Emmanuel was in the clinic, writing notes, when he heard heavy footsteps. He looked up, and there was Kofi. But Kofi was not the boy he remembered. He was a man now, thick, tired, his eyes were red, and behind him, holding his hand, was a little girl. Maybe 5 years old. Her skin was yellow. She was barely standing. Kofi looked at Emmanuel, and for a long time, neither of them said anything. Then Kofi opened his mouth, and what came out was not what Emmanuel expected. My daughter, Kofi said. His voice cracked. Please, they told me you are the only one. Please, Emmanuel. Emmanuel. He used his name, not groundnut boy, not whole shoe. Emmanuel. Emmanuel looked at the little girl. She was looking up at him with big, scared eyes. And he saw something in her face that he recognized. Because he had worn that same look, a long time ago, standing in the dust, holding a notebook against his chest, wondering if anyone in the world would ever help him. He stood up. He walked around the table. He knelt down in front of the little girl, so that he was at her level. And he said, "What is your name?" "Adaize," she whispered. "Adaize," he said, "I am going to help you. Do you understand? I am going to help you." And she nodded. And she let go of her father's hand and reached out and touched his face. Just touched it, like she was checking if he was real. Emmanuel treated Adaize that night, and the next night, and the next. He stayed in the village. He slept in the clinic. He ate what they gave him, which was not much, but he ate. And slowly, the village began to change. Not because Emmanuel said anything. He did not lecture them. He did not remind them of the past. He did not say, "Do you remember when you called me groundnut boy?" He did not say any of that. He just worked. He saved lives. One by one, child by child, mother by mother. And the people watched. And something shifted in them. Something that had been hard and closed began to soften. Because you cannot watch a man save your child's life and still pretend that he is nothing. You cannot hold a grudge against someone who is kneeling on the floor at 2 in the morning, holding your daughter's hand, whispering to her, "Stay with me, stay with me." On the fifth day, Emmanuel's mother came to the clinic. She walked in slowly, leaning on a stick. She looked at him, and her eyes filled with tears. She did not say anything for a while. She just stood there, looking at her son, in his white coat, with his stethoscope, surrounded by people who had come to him for help. Then she said, "You kept your promise." He looked at her. "Which promise, Mama?" "The one you wrote in the notebook. You said you would come back, and you did." He did not answer. He just took her hand and led her to a chair and sat her down, and he went back to work. By the end of the second week, most of the sick were recovering. The fever was breaking. The yellow was fading from the children's skin. The nurse, who had been so tired she could barely stand, was smiling for the first time in weeks. And on the last evening, before Emmanuel was due to drive back to the city, something happened that I need to tell you about. Because it is the part that matters most. The village gathered. Not because anyone organized it. They just came, men, women, children. They came to the clinic, and they stood outside, and they waited. Emmanuel came out. He saw them. He stopped. And then Kofi stepped forward. Just Kofi. The rest of them stayed back. Kofi stood in front of Emmanuel. He was a big man, but he looked small. He looked down at the ground. And he said, "I do not know how to say this. I have never been good at saying things. But I need to say it. He paused. When we were children, I was cruel to you. I called you names. I made you feel like you were less than nothing, and you were not nothing. You were the best of us. You were always the best of us. And I am sorry. He did not look up. He just stood there, waiting. And Emmanuel looked at him. For a long time, the sun was setting behind the hill, and the light was gold, and the dust was still in the air, and the village was quiet. Then Emmanuel did something that surprised everyone. He reached out and put his hand on Kofi's shoulder. Just that. Just his hand, resting there. And he said, "Your daughter is going to be fine, Kofi. She is strong, like her father." Kofi looked up, and his face broke open, and he cried. A big man, crying in front of everyone, and nobody laughed. Nobody, because there was nothing to laugh at. There was only the truth, standing between them, plain and simple. After that, other people came forward, one by one. A woman who had laughed at his mother, an old man who had told him to go away, a teacher who had looked the other way. They came, and they said their piece, and Emmanuel listened. He listened to every single one of them, and he forgave them, not because they deserved it, but because holding on to that pain was a weight he had carried long enough. He drove away the next morning, early, before the sun was fully up. His mother was at the gate. She handed him a bag of groundnuts, fresh ones. She had roasted them herself. For the road, she said. He took the bag, he got in the car, and he drove up the hill, and the village got smaller behind him, and the dust settled, and the road stretched out ahead. He did not look back. But this time, it was not because he was afraid. It was because he was free. You see, that is the thing about pain. It can break you. It can make you small and hard and bitter. Or it can make you into something else. Something that carries the weight of what happened and turns it into something useful. Something that heals. Emmanuel could have come back angry. He had every right. Every single right. The world had given him plenty of reasons to walk into that village and make them feel every ounce of what they had put him through. But he did not. Because the boy who wrote, "I will become a doctor and I will come back," in a torn notebook, under a thin mattress, on a floor where his mother slept, that boy was not interested in revenge. He was interested in saving people, even the ones who did not deserve it, especially the ones who did not deserve it. And that, my friends, is the rarest kind of strength there is. Not the strength to fight, not the strength to win, but the strength to walk into the place that hurts you the most, and instead of burning it down, you heal it. Emmanuel went back to the city. He went back to his hospital, his small apartment, his quiet life. But something in him had changed. He was lighter, as if he had finally put down a bag he had been carrying since he was a child. And sometimes, late at night, he would take out that old notebook, the one with the cardboard cover, and he would open it to the first page, where he had written that sentence so many years ago: "I will become a doctor, and I will come back." And he would smile, just a little, just enough, because he did. He came back. And he saved them all. Not because they asked, not because they earned it, but because that is who he was. That is who the groundnuts and the hole in the shoe, and the laughter, and the dust, and the long walk up the hill made him into. A man who heals. Even when the world gave him every reason not to. That is the story. And if you are sitting there right now, carrying your own bag, your own pain, your own village that mocked you and made you small, I want you to hear this. Do not let them be the end of your story. Let them be the reason your story matters. Because the boy they mocked, the one they called nothing, the one with the hole in his shoe, he became the only doctor who could save them. And maybe, just maybe, you are that person too. You just do not know it yet. Keep walking. Keep studying. Keep believing in that small fire under the ash. Because one day, you will go back, and they will need you, and you will be ready. For more, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification.